Call the meeting to order for September 1st, 2015. All of you that would like to stand for the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin with the legislative session tonight, I'd like to ask the county executive. He has asked for time tonight to pay tribute to the Twilley family from Willards, and they're here. If you'd like to join Bob at the podium, please do.
I've been a solid.
You have.
Thank you so much, Councilman President. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of Wicomico County to recognize a feat that we don't always get to do. And it's a great honor on my behalf to be able to do this. Keith Twilley here is representing the Twilley family. And on behalf of that, I'd like to read a small proclamation. Whereas the Twilley family has served the Willards Volunteer Fire Company since 1959. Since 1959, there has been at least one Twilley family member in the fire service of Wicomico County. At least 10 members of the Twilley family have served with the Willards Volunteer Fire Company, including Francis, Keith, Kenny, Ruth Ann, Pam, C.K., Amy, Kenny, and Brenda. All the family has received a multi-generational award from the Maryland State Firemen's Association at its last association meeting. The Twilleys have a total of 180 years service with Wicomico County in the fire service. So therefore, let it be resolved that by Wicomico County Executive and the Wicomico County Council that all the citizens urge to acknowledge the community service that the Twilley family has provided to the citizens of the county done this first day of September 2015.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it. Like you said.
My father started this tradition, and at one time, a gentleman that used to sit in here and was a very good friend of mine, Rusty Mauner, told me if anybody in the Twilley family was cut, they would bleed Willards Fire Department blue. But we accept this tonight on behalf of every volunteer in Wicomico County and the state of Maryland that's doing a job for us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Kramer.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Shall I let you start?
Do you care to do the minutes?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes from August 8, 2015. 18, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, corrections. Somebody say something, because Mr. Kramer took hours preparing for this. Between everything else. Perfect. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the County Council, ladies and gentlemen. The next item for council's business is resolution number 136, 2015, confirming the reappointment of Robin Holloway to the Wicomico County Ethics Commission.
Entertain a motion to accept resolution 136, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Next is resolution number 137, 2015, at the request of the county executive to authorize the executive to accept grant funds in the amount of $20,000 from the Wicomico County Health Department to promote healthier eating and/or physical activity in the community or work site, and to authorize the executive to execute a memorandum of understanding. The Health Department received funding from the DHMH, the Center for Chronic Diseases, to address obesity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and stroke prevention for adults. The Recreation and Parks Department submitted a proposal for funding and was awarded funding in the amount of $20,000 for the above purpose.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 137, 2015.
So moved.
Second. And a second. Discussion? Is there anyone here from the Health Department?
That's why I read it.
Okay. Okay. All right. All those in favor of Resolution 137, 2015, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Resolution number 138, 2015, at the request of the county executive, authorizing the executive to submit a grant application and accept a grant award from the Maryland Chesapeake Bay Trust 2-year milestone support grant program in an amount up to $75,000.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 138, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion.
Mr. Young is here if you have any questions.
Mr. Young? Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
Thanks for being here.
Hey, no problem. So this is one of the available grants to help us meet our WIP goals.
Right.
It's up to $75,000. I think we're going to be asking in the $50,000 range. I guess we're counting our in-kind services as well towards that. The specific project we are looking at is located near the airport. There's a ditch along Walston Switch, which is hard to maintain given our current equipment, and it would modify this ditch to provide water quality credits, but also ease of maintenance going into the future. So it's a good project. It would help us meet our, like I said, our Chesapeake Bay cleanup efforts, and using the Chesapeake Bay Trust monies to help our money go further.
Excellent. Questions from anybody? Yes.
Will the $10,000 cash match decrease if we only get the $50,000 instead of the $75,000, or will that stay at $10,000?
Well, I guess the problem with this grant, it had such a short time frame. It's actually due tomorrow.
Okay.
So the actual numbers, specific numbers, I'm not sure. We could still do the $10,000 match,
Okay.
cash match, in addition to the in-kind services of my time and Keith Hall with Planning and Zoning working towards this.
Is that a motion to postpone?
Yeah. I don't think we have the time.
Special session.
Councilman Kilmer?
This says submit and accept. Are you thinking we're going to get this? I mean,
I'm pretty confident. To help with the grant, the Chesapeake, Center for Watershed Protection has assisted with the grant preparation, and they have a very high success rate. And then with the cash match, as well as our in-kind services, we're making it fairly competitive. This is a grant that some people could submit with no match at all, and by us showing commitment, putting some skin in the game, so to speak, it improves our odds drastically.
Do you expect it to be very competitive?
I think so. The money to clean up the bay is, I guess you often hear the complaints regarding how are we going to pay for this. This is money's available, and to help secure us winning it, we partnered with a good nonprofit as well as the cash match and in-kind services. So,
What are the in-kind services?
just our time. I guess the efforts of within Public Works as well as Planning and Zoning. We keep track of our time and our efforts with that, and that can count towards the grant in terms of in-kind.
Mr. President, you might be interested in knowing that the resolution includes that the local cash matching funds come from the Solid Waste Chesapeake Bay Watershed Abatement Account. So it's a two bangs for the buck.
Yeah. Great. Excellent.
I guess I have a question about how you choose this project. I've someone that we've been talking to about Chesapeake Bay cleanup mentioned specific, the big problem in Wicomico County is the river, Wicomico River mainly, and they said, so why are they doing projects at the airport instead of around the river? I mean, so can you expand on that a little bit? I mean, what process do you use to choose which projects to fund and all that kind of stuff?
Exactly. So one of the basic ways of determining where the projects go is doing a watershed study. There have been several studies, and that's was handled by Planning and Zoning, who handles the planning side of the house. when we get those studies, and we have about 18 projects in various stages of construction or design, one of the big things you look for, even though you would think being closer to the water, you're going to get more of an immediate benefit, but everywhere drains to the bay. That's part of the reason why when you hear Pennsylvania is not doing enough, the farms in Pennsylvania do affect the Chesapeake Bay eventually. So in the case of the airport, what you have is, I'll say, old impervious surface. When you do a new development, stormwater regulations kick in. So you have to have ponds or newer treatment things like bioretention. You're trying to clean the water. The airport being older and not having all those ponds, it's what we call untreated impervious. So one of the things we can do is look around the county and say, where are there large impervious areas that currently are not treated by any sort of stormwater practice? So what rains on those, instead of draining to a pond that's been designed to handle that, it drains to ditches and then to our creeks and then to the Wicomico River or Nanacoke or Pocomoke. We drained all three. So with that, really anything we do in the county benefits us. So even if it's as far away as the airport and not immediately on the water, we still get credits towards meeting the bay. And sometimes going away from the water tends to be more valuable in terms of real estate. So by offsetting it a bit, going into the county, we may have some more options. But in this case, the airport is one that we saw untreated impervious surfaces as well as a ditch that could use improvements that could make it maintenance. So looking for the win-win. And also the other thing is when you're determining where to put these BMPs, it's usually good to look at public spaces first before you start talking about land acquisition, because that raises the cost of the project up significantly and isn't always a popular option.
Any other questions? If seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 138, 2015, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes. Thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Very much.
Next is Resolution Number 139, 2015, at the request of the County Executive, approving a law enforcement mutual aid and support agreement between the Mayor and Ocean City Town Council and the Wicomico County, Maryland.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 139, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All right. See if I have anything right now. First, my only question had been liability, and that was already answered for me, I believe maybe in a discussion that you and I had, that everything is taken care of in reference to exposure.
And you made a point in that conversation, too, that it might be a good idea for the council to review all the mutual aid agreements that the county has with other jurisdictions.
Right. Right. We can pursue that as well. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I was just wondering, with my previous profession, I'm very familiar with mutual aid and do appreciate it, and it's definitely needed, and I'm glad to see that we've got something worked out in Ocean City. Just wondering, on the authorizing signatures, we have the county executive, the sheriff, and only the mayor of Ocean City. Why don't we have the chief of police?
That's how Ocean City submitted it to us.
That's how Ocean City submitted it. You understand why I asked the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of Resolution 139, 2015, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Roser, you have 17 minutes.
Don't tell him that, he'll take 20.
No, we need it. We need it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just have a few small items to bring to your attention tonight. First of which is my office is tracking workers' compensation medical claims. Call your attention to my memo dated 8/7/15, in which we did a trend analysis based on another memo that we released 6 months ago. The trend for the number of injuries causing workers' compensation claims is flat to slightly negative, as you can see there. Expenses, however, are rising. So We were a little bit concerned about that, but we have management assurances that the three major claims make up 72% of that total, which is about $680,000 for FY15. We are not at fault in these instances. Management policies are designed to aggressively recover costs, and additionally, at this time, we are still receiving maximum discounts from the insurance company. We plan additional follow-up. We'll keep an eye on this situation as it progresses and continue the trend analysis as needed. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have about that.
Any questions?
Which department do most of these have? I mean, is there one where they're concentrated in, or?
I don't have those particulars. Well, I do, actually, for you at this point. The loss leading injuries by part of the body was the report that we were looking at. We understand that one of these instances was from the sheriff's office, one from corrections, and I'm not sure about the third one, but I'll be more than happy to get you that information.
Are these, do you anticipate that this will go on year after year after year, or will it come to an end at one point in time? I mean, you're talking about three people that are responsible, I'd say three cases that are responsible for 72%. Do we expect that to wind down at any time soon? Or?
We could certainly hope so, and that's why we're going to take a look at it in the future to make sure that this is not a continuing trend. And if it is, then we may want to recommend a management that they put some things in place to try to prevent it. But if indeed this is an anomaly, then future look at this is going to tell us whether or not we need to adjust our priorities as far as this goes.
Okay. Do you need a consensus for approval on this? Or just,
no, sir. This is
just
simply a
review?
follow-up and
Thank you.
just for your information and to answer questions. Okay, if there's no other questions on that one, the second item I wanted to bring to your attention tonight is that we followed up on some findings related to the banking practices audit. Please refer to the memo dated 8/25/15. The original audit report was dated April 9th of this year. We retested 5 accounts that lacked sufficient internal controls at the time of the audit. At this time, all 5 scored in the satisfactory range, and this was due to management changes in separation of duties, and in one case, changes to the materiality of that particular bank account. So we're confident at this point that our issues that we raised and on these particular accounts have been addressed. We plan no further follow-up related to the current audit. Future analysis of banking operations can, however, take place as the need and risk assessment arises. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about this as well.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
Okay, one other thing. The
Yes, sir.
last thing I have is that Dr. Keaton, who is a member of our audit committee, has offered to provide interns from his fraud class at Salisbury University. The program 2 years ago we had with him was very successful, and we will begin reviewing applications for interns and resumes this week, and I just want you to be aware of that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
What will their responsibilities be?
Their responsibilities will depend upon their abilities. I make it clear to my interns, because they're unpaid, that they're not going to sit around collating and stapling and hole punching. I'll rather have these students exposed to what we do here. Internal auditing is not something that is taught actively in an accounting program, but it's a great career path. And so I assess their abilities, their spreadsheet abilities for data mining, that sort of thing. We'll look over their shoulder, review their work, but have them do some of that work. And additionally, they will shadow me on field work and write up their own notes and agendas and reports on everything that we do out in the field. It was a very successful program for both the students and internal auditing 2 years ago. The volume of work for that short semester that came out of my office tripled, and the students gained, according to Dr. Keaton, some good experience for working here. So it's going to be a hard act to follow, but we hope to be able to to duplicate those efforts.
Great. We're glad you're pursuing it. Thank you. John?
Steve, are you just getting one intern, or are you looking for more if you can possibly utilize it?
Sure, a lot of it depends on the timing. Last time we had 3 interns, and we got lucky. Their schedules just fit into each other hand in glove, so that it was equivalent of 1 full-time person.
So if you can use.
If we can
Right, if
get
you
lucky
schedule-
again, maybe we can do that.
I remember the amount of work that you turned down. You were so thrilled.
It was amazing.
Beneficial for everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
The chair at this time will have to ask your indulgence while we go into a 10-minute recess. The reason being is the next item on the agenda is public hearing. Public hearing is scheduled, excuse me, for 6:30, and we are obligated to hold it at 6:30 or later, but we cannot hold it any time sooner. So we will take a recess for 10 minutes. Mr. Kramer, yes.
An alternate, if you would care to do it, would be to introduce the other piece of legislation. That would take at least part of the time, if you'd allow Mrs. Howarth to do that.
We could switch that around. Number 3. I'm completely okay with that. We won't take a recess, so I don't know how many people we just lost on PAC 14, but
It might just be a refrigerator trip or something.
if the council could shift in your agenda items to an introduction of legislative bill 2015-13.
Which is an act to amend Exhibit A of the Annual Budget and Appropriation Bill, Legislative Bill 2015-03, adopted June 2nd, 2015, to further appropriate the $684,844 that you appropriated to the Economic Development Account 38, and you're further appropriating into salaries, operating capital for the Office of Business Development that you're creating in Legislative Bill 2015-12.
Thank you, Mrs. Howarth. Entertain a motion to introduce legislative bill 2015-13.
So move.
Second.
Mr. President, call your attention to the expanded exhibit that was emailed to you earlier today. The photocopy version that was in your brief book was truncated. So this one has all the data on it.
What Mr. Kramer is referencing is that it is a more itemized account with Exhibit A referencing the specific expenses within the new Office of Economic Development and Grants. As is noted here, it's, as you can see, salaries in general are being introduced as $113,000, benefits estimated at $59,274, operating expenses at $339,820, a capital outlay of $25,000, and included within this, itemized as not previously done in last year's budget, is the SWED grant of $144,750. Questions from council members?
I think,
Councilman Hall?
do we need to transfer these funds all at one time? Or can we portion them out as we receive them? For instance, a SWED grant, has that been approved at this point? Well, that was from last year, wasn't it? The SWED grant?
That's for the SWED grant for this fiscal year. Now, whether it's been dispersed, I have no idea.
I believe it has.
It has? Okay. We haven't even approved salaries for, because we don't know who the people are, who we're going to hire at this time. And again, do we need to move the entire amount into this Economic Development Office of Business Development at one time?
It's already in count number 38. It's already there. We've already been paying it.
Yeah, if you could use the mic, Bob. Thanks. Good evening.
Same to you.
How are you doing? Can you do us a favor and state your name to the department? You okay with that, Mike?
Okay.
This money was already in the budget, if you remember, that we had allocated when the budget was approved. We are basically just looking for the salaries to appoint the 2 positions. this was a further understanding of how we tentatively plan to spend this money. You know, I guess in one way, this money has already been spent. The 144,000, is that what we paid?
It's 100,
144,750 has already been sent to SWED.
The soy grant has, right?
So, I mean, it's not like, we're just showing you, you know, of what we're hoping to put some of that money towards. I mean, it's already there. It's already been spent.
the money, when you adopted the budget, was in Economic Development, Office Number 38. And within that was the 147,000 that has over history been given to SWED. And the additional 537,094 was in operating.
Mr. Hall, I tried to cut $287,000 from the office and did not receive a second. So then it all went, I think, into that
That's
just
correct.
general and so,
Very
yeah.
correct, operating.
But I appreciate your support at this late date for that.
No telling what could happen next time.
I was glad to see the total package as far as economic development, because we all know that's the highest priority for the county and for the executive council. What I would like to see, though, and I really like the fact that everything's becoming itemized, finally we're seeing where it's going to go and how it's going to be done. What I would feel more comfortable with, however, is that the operating expenses, which are listed at 339,820, I would like to see that's something that's more realistic now that the dust has settled. Maybe about $50,000. If you compare this to what departments across the board are receiving for the most part, especially a two-man department, two-woman department, I think 50,000 is probably a good estimate on an operating budget. And maybe if we transfer the rest of that to contingency. Because I think what this ought to reflect is what our true intentions are. And I would not want to mischaracterize this as we really think that we're going to have an operating expense of $339,000 in one department.
Okay, maybe you need to clarify operating budget of 50,000 for what?
Well, I can't tell you specifically. I just know that in reviewing the budget of different departments, whether it's law, whether it's purchasing, for a two-man department, the most I could really find was about 35,000. I believe law is about
Less.
yeah, maybe so. But anyway, between 35 and 50,000 seemed to be a sufficient operating budget for any department that had,
This
made up of
operation,
two individuals.
this operation, is that supposed to carry the billboards, the TV ads, and all that we're supposed to do?
Well, I don't have any itemization here. I can't tell you about it. I have no itemization on this. I was under the impression that the billboards we were doing, for the most part, were gratis.
They're not gratis. They're at a very good rate.
Paying for the paper. But, I mean, before we just, I just don't know if I feel comfortable, and this is up to the council decision, not me. I just didn't feel quite comfortable just saying across the board that we're gonna spend $340,000 on operating expenses, not knowing what those operating expenses might be.
Well, at this point in time, we haven't hired anybody for those positions, and I think that would be prudent to talk to those professionals that we're going to hire to see, let us map out a plan at that point in time. I think you're trying to go in this tying somebody's hands like you're only going to have 50,000, and you just as well not. You just will shut this whole department down if that's what you want to do.
No, it's not really, you're welcome back here anytime you want. And you can always come back and you can say, here's what we need, here's what our process is. And that's just, I think it's a functional way to operate. I just, to drop, initially.
I have to
with the
totally
approval-
disagree with you because I just feel like
That's
you're going
okay.
to try to tie the hands of the economic department. We came here with that money saying that we'll come up and tell you what we're going to do and be glad to tell you what we're going to do. But to put a dollar limit on it, I think is just tying somebody's hands. It's not necessary at this point.
Yes.
When the budget's adopted, and you understand, this money was put in there as operating, so it is already in there to spend.
Well, I'm aware.
For economic development. And usually we don't, and I don't know if you want to start a precedent, we don't come back for every line item transfer if it's within the department.
Right.
And if we started, I think we'd be here for hours every meeting, and.
Well, I don't know if I could agree with you there. Initially, we allowed the full amount to be in, despite some objections. But we allowed it to be there because it was sort of uncharted territory. So we said, okay, that's I mean, it was a random figure. There was no rhyme or reason to it except for relatively a random figure. And I say now that it seems that, you know, we've started to separate it out, the process, and we can see where specific expenses might go, I just felt that this large a number on operating expenses, especially within the first year, may be a little excessive. I'm not gonna beat it to
Same as
death.
last year, right?
Well, I think until you have your business development director in place, and we allow that individual to chart out a strategy and tactics, I think it's difficult to say whether or not 50,000 is right or 300,000 is right. And I tend to agree with, part of what I'm concerned about is, you know, if we go out and we try to hire an economic or a business development officer and say your budget's $50,000, you know, they may well say, well, you know, there's no way to execute an economic development plan for a county of this size with $50,000. So I think we're premature with making an adjustment, other than to say, are we going to approve these two positions? And if we're going to approve those positions, let's get those people on board. Let's give them the opportunity to chart out a course for us.
I would only say that I would feel very comfortable with saying, if 50,000, we could say 100,000. We have somewhat of a responsibility as a council too, to the taxpayers and how we're spending their dollars. And if somebody came to me and said, I mean, I already had some people say $600,000 for economic development. I said, well, that's true. These are big businessmen. And I said, well, that's true, but it's just a figure that we're starting with, just to see where we're going. But now as it's starting to break down again, you know, someone's going to say, you're spending $303. What are you spending it on? And I say, I'm not sure. I'd feel much more comfortable saying, well, it's 50,000, 100,000 is what we're starting with. Anytime at all, the executive branch can come back to the council and say, here's exactly what we planned, here's structure A, B, C, and D, and it's gonna be great. And I don't think you're gonna see any problems.
I feel like you're trying to do the executive's job, and if you want to come up with a budget and let me approve it next year, I'd be glad to do that, no problem. But
The
the point
process is where it is, Bob.
The
because-
point is, no, we set this up, John, earlier on. We went to this and said we're going to do these different things. Now you're trying to limit the amount of money, and the position of the employee is going to be more than $50,000 a year. And, you know.
No, that's
up here in the
that's
top
under
line.
salaries.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, as Wayne says, you're not giving enough money to do anything. I mean, an ad campaign alone could run $20,000.
I understand. And keep in mind, as per the charter, it is our responsibility to take the numbers that you give us, and if we feel it's necessary to adjust them, we can do that. It's not doing your job, it's doing our job. It's a checks and balances system established by the charter.
Different. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Well,
I said I wasn't saying that.
Well, I mean, I think that gets to, I mean, I think the heart of the question is, if we allow this big pot of money, an unspecified pot of money to remain, and it's up to the executive to spend however he wants. And I appreciate that you said you'd consult us on that. I think, if I'm hearing John correctly, he says that he'd like, I guess, the process to work a little bit opposite in that he wants the executive to present to the council and say, you know, we have this plan out of contingency, will you approve this plan of spending? And I don't think either one of those violate the charter, it just determines how we want to do business with each other, I think. So, I mean, that's kind of my interpretation of what's at the question here.
I think to go back to Leslie's point, the money has already been appropriated. And I think you set a precedent when you then say, we're going to disappropriate funds. I'm very uncomfortable with setting that precedent.
There's nothing wrong with that precedent. Again, as I said
According
before.
to?
Again, as I said before, there is nothing wrong with that precedent. If this 300.
So when we pass a budget, John, excuse me, so when we pass a budget and appropriate the funds, the executive should be lending himself to a council that may come back and say, we've changed our mind, we're going to disappropriate certain funds. I think that's a very slippery slope.
I would say probably 99% of the budget that was approved was itemized. And even you gentlemen reviewed what each and every department was spending down to the dollar before you brought it to this table and said, here's what we're asking you to spend. We made an exception on this one department. That was a precedent. So all I am suggesting is that maybe we want to be more careful. Say $100,000, I started with 50, and now I'm saying 100. And it's not up to me, it's up to the council of 70.
2 points, and then I'll be quiet. The first is that until we have a professionals in place, we can't tell you how much of that 300 and some thousand dollars is going to be needed to stimulate economic activity in this county. So that's my first. My second point is that I am extremely uncomfortable with disappropriating funds from a budget that was approved. With that, I'm done.
Noted.
And will you want to come back then and explain what items I can use? Let's say it's on an ad campaign, whether it's going to be paper, copy, whatever. Or are you going to then want to say how it's going to be spent?
There's very little I can tell you right now because there's no itemization whatsoever on an expense of over $300,000. There's no itemization whatsoever. Not television, not billboard, not paper advertising, nothing. It's just a number. And it's not going away. We're just I think, trying to be a little more restrictive in how the process begins. $100,000 will go a long way with anybody on any type of operating
Well,
expense.
I think my administration has shown you we're not going to waste money. You know, we haven't wasted it yet so far that I can see. If you've got someplace, you let me know. But we're not just throwing this money away, but if you're going to tie our hands, it's going to be a limited, and if I've got to come back every time someone, wants to spend another $10,000 or $15,000, what if we've already spent 50 or 40 of the 50 and the next part of it's 20,000 more? I have to come back here then and get approval for each time, or what? What dollar blocks are you talking about? As Wayne says, this has already been approved. I think you're.
Can I ask Maureen a question? Assuming, and I'm not making that assumption, but assuming that this money were transferred back to contingency in some part, then to bring it out of contingency, do we do that by legislative bill again, or do we do it by resolution?
Transfers from contingency can be done by resolution.
Okay.
May I add something?
Yes, you may.
You did certainly appropriate the $600-some thousand to economic development fund, account 38, whatever you would like to call it, but you did not appropriate to an office because an office did not exist. You're creating an office in the other bill, which is still not created and then won't be in effect for 60 days. So this is very unique in the sense that you're creating a new office after already appropriating a large pot of money to economic development. That could have been used for more impact fee grants or whatever the executive had chosen to use it for. It was a pot of money. It was not an appropriation for an office. That's why we had to come back to appropriate salaries, the operating, the grant portion, and the benefit portion. So that's why we're in the unique circumstances. And so you did appropriate money to economic development. I don't think you can take the money away from economic development. That's what you appropriated for. Perhaps you could set aside that for economic development and break out the operating more, but I don't think you can take that appropriation away from economic development.
Where would it go then if we say we can't take it away, but we can reappropriate it? Where would that go?
We're having to do the appropriation now. You're appropriating salary, operating, grant, and benefits. Is for you to discuss. I mean, obviously you're discussing, your thought was contingency, which I think I would have to agree with the executive side. That is sort of taking away appropriation that you've already done. But maybe you can break out the operating in this chart a little more where both sides would be comfortable, but that's for your discussion with each other.
Can I speak?
Thank you. Yes.
For me, to operate here as a CPA and to make sure we get a clean audit when the auditors come, I pretty much run anything that I'm uncertain and to get confirmation. And of the charter, section 708, transfers of appropriation, clearly states that once it is put in an office or a department, it can be transferred within that department by the executive. And I pretty much, when you change it, then it makes me not have any guidelines anymore.
The
And to know
issues
that
with
it
that
don't-
statement is there is no office. You didn't appropriate to an office. That's the big problem. That's why we have to create the office.
No, I disagree. 38 is an office. And I thought at the last meeting, you said this was a trial, and we would keep it within this office, and if it worked, next budget, we would start a new department.
Well, I have to defer to law. Law says it is not an office.
And I'm not going to ever argue with a lawyer, because I'm not a lawyer, but I am a CPA, and according to our guidelines, it is, because it's certain, accounting principles we follow, and it's clearly written and stated, and that's exactly what we're doing. You either have an office, a department, or a fund, and this is an office.
It'll be an office after the legislation takes effect in 60 days from tonight, if it's introduced tonight. That's what Ms. Howard is saying.
Then just for the record, what is number 38? I mean,
It's a fund.
When the money was appropriated, I don't know what the finance department labeled it, but there is no Office of Economic Development, there's no Department of Economic Development, that's what you're creating. So if it was incorrectly categorized, I don't know, I don't work in the finance department, but I've explained this to the executive's office, hence why we approached the bill the way we did, to make sure that the executive has the authority to pay salaries, to pay benefits, to pay operating, to give the whole thing. So there's no question that he has that authority to do that.
Well, this is just introduction of the bill, correct? I mean, we're not voting tonight on any of this.
Well, actually, we're in violation then, because we've already paid 2 months' rent. We've already paid SWED $147,000. Those monies have already been spent, so we're in violation if you are just now calling this a, quote, department or an office, because the money came out
I'm
of
confused
it.
as to why we have a lease on a building when the lease started on August 1st, and we know that this still takes another 2 months to pass, and we're paying on a lease for August, September, or October, and just,
Well,
I'm wondering why.
You may have to get law back, because I don't understand, the lease was approved starting, actually,
understand. I'm just
actually it was
surprised.
started in July, and we started paying the lease in July.
Oh, the lease says it starts on August 1st.
It said August
it
1st.
was August 1st. But can I
Was it?
I
Okay,
just
I'm
speak?
sorry.
I don't want to get into.
Yes, that's right, September.
This is
that's
just
right.
First of all, we don't have a motion on the floor to amend the introduction anyway. So
So there's a motion to introduce this.
Yes.
Not to pass it. So these issues can be.
Introduce.
Yeah.
That's the step.
Yeah, so we're not coming to any decision tonight on
Right.
anything.
No, I just threw it out for
Okay, yeah,
discussion.
okay, all right. So,
and
What would you like me to do then? Call the people back and get our rent money back, and call SWED and get our money back?
I'm just trying to get the bill introduced.
No, I'm just asking, if, you all keep saying this is not,
Mr.
Not in
Cannon,
effect.
Mr. Cannon's SWED is identified. SWED's appropriation is identified.
actually,
Under Fund
between now and the
38.
introduction, you guys can tell us where you're going to spend $339,000 when you come back.
That's what I'd like to see happen.
you want basically an outline of how we feel it should go.
Sure.
And we haven't been able to hire anybody yet, because we still have to wait 60 days before we can
So
hire
it's
someone.
just an outline.
Any other comments?
I too saw the August 1st date, and I wondered about that over the weekend, and then I can appreciate, well, you probably need to secure an office space, and I'm assuming that's what we did, secured one in advance, so we didn't lose it.
Can I just speak as, I would never have let you sign a lease if it hadn't been funded. And the money was appropriated in Office 38. I mean, that's my job, is to make sure.
I never had a question on that.
Yeah, well, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any question. I mean, we appropriated the money. I mean,
Exactly.
it's there. I mean, I think the question is, going forward, what do we do with, I mean, because this is unique. I mean, the big binder we got said that $287,000 of this would be
Exactly.
used for grants for impact fee, which changed, during the course.
And we
So
thank you
that-
for putting a moratorium on, rather.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Thank you
I
very
mean,
much.
so situations move past that, and so this was not as defined as every single other, I mean, there was tons of detail in that book, and we appreciate all the work in that. I mean, so that, it is a bit of a unique situation, and I don't think we're saying that you don't have the money right now. I mean, you obviously do. It was passed. It's in the budget. And I think this is just a discussion. I don't know what anyone else thinks on the council, but there is a little bit of, I have a little bit of trepidation in just saying, this is a lot of money to spend, and we have no say whatsoever in how that gets spent as it exists right now. I certainly think we could have done things differently and avoided this situation, but this is where we're at now. And I don't think we're trying to be, I'm not trying to be confrontational on this, but we do have a duty in looking over how this money gets spent. So I think that's kind of what my motivation is.
Are you authorizing me to go ahead and keep paying the rent and paying the utilities on the building that we've got? And we've done work on this building. Everybody knows it's the PNC
It's
building.
not up to us to authorize it. I mean,
Well, you're taking it back from me.
I'm not taking anything back. How much, what is it, 20,000?
You're just saying that this has not been authorized to be spent on the building and everything.
No, I never said that. No, I never said you didn't have any authorization to do it.
I understand the caution, being that we're the Joe likes to say, the watchdogs of the taxpayers' money. But I also hate micromanagement. And I feel like that is exactly what the council is inserting itself in here, is micromanagement of the department, and telling this potential director that we're gonna micromanage what they're gonna do with this money. And that's not my place. I don't think that should be our place here. And to me, it's more attractive, whoever we're gonna hire for this position, to say that we have $339,000, make it work. Do something for this county. It's a risk. I mean, we're taking a risk here. No doubt. This whole thing is an experiment. I hope it works. I have faith that it will. But for us to say, we're only gonna give you 50,000, 100,000, and then come to us and tell, that's micromanagement to me. I don't like it. I think that exceeds the bounds of the council.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I would never want to micromanage any department. I don't believe in that. It's not for us to worry about. But when we are appropriating funds,
Sure.
and we are taking the initial steps to appropriate funds for a department, it is our responsibility to decide exactly how much maybe is warranted.
But it comes down to what is gonna make this work, and what makes this attractive to that person we're gonna hire. And if I'm
agree.
applying for this position, if somebody says they're gonna give me $340,000 to promote this county and make it a successful county, I'm gonna apply for that job. If somebody tells me you're gonna get $50,000 and then come back and ask for more, I'm not gonna bother with it.
I think that can be discussed between the
Sure.
executive and whoever's being hired.
Sure.
But,
That's just my impression.
I don't think I'd feel so uncomfortable with it if there wasn't some type of a breakdown as to what the expenses are for. As I said, because this is brand new. It's
Right.
just starting out. I don't know what number you would feel comfortable with. If it were $1.5 million, would you start to feel uncomfortable with how it's being budgeted?
I don't know. I mean, this is what we came up with, is feeling comfortable during the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I don't actually feel comfortable with $350,000 out there, but I trust the executive made a professional judgment, thinking that that's what this department's gonna need. And I certainly hope if they don't spend that, it comes back into the budget. But when I left Mako on Saturday, I saw a big sign right outside Ocean City, had the governor on it and had the county executive, and it said, "We're open for business." So I trust that this county is gonna get this money back at some point.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of introducing legislative bill 2015-13, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cannon, would you like to set a public hearing?
Yes, we certainly could. I would assume the sooner the better.
The first meeting we could do it is the first meeting in October to meet your advertising.
Okay. That would be October 6th. Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Howarth. All right, we certainly killed 15 minutes.
Mission accomplished.
We now would like to open the meeting to public hearings and approval on resolutions. Mrs. Howarth?
We have Resolution 140-2015. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 1st, 2015, at 6:30 PM in the council chambers, Government Office Building, Salisbury, Maryland, for an amendment to the Wicomico County Water and Sewer Plan. The City of Fruitland is requesting an amendment to the Wicomico County Water and Sewer Plan to update Section 3.3.2 and Tables 4 and 6 to provide for the installation of a new production well and to upgrade their filtering system. The new production well, well number 5, is estimated to provide 500 GPM.
At this point in time, we would open the floor to public hearings on, for anyone that would like to make comments on Resolution 140, 2015. If you'd like, come to the podium and state your name. Thank you. Seeing none. Okay. Seeing none, that closes the public hearing. Entertain a motion from council to accept Resolution 140, 2015.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
We have a public hearing and approval for Legislative Bill 2015-12. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 1st, 2015, commencing at 6:30 PM in the council chambers of the Government Office Building, Salisbury, Maryland, in conformity with Section 311D of the Charter of Wicomico County on the following bill, which was introduced for consideration at a legislative session of said county for the year 2015. The following bill may be called for final reading and consideration commencing immediately after the aforesaid public hearing. It's Bill 2015-12, an act to create the Office of Business Development and to amend the Wicomico County Classification and Pay Plan by the addition of 2 new positions entitled Director of Business Development and Grants and Administrative Office Associate 1, and establishing the positions' job titles and grades.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the floor for public hearing on Legislative Bill 2015-12. If you have any comments, go to the podium, please. State your name. Seeing none, that closes the public hearing. I entertain a motion from council to approve Legislative Bill 2015-12.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? What I have may not be relative to the motion, but in just reviewing the material, under duties and responsibilities that were listed, they did not coordinate, I guess that's the right word, with the essential functions, because you listed 10 essential functions on here, but whoever prepared the duties and responsibility didn't transfer those essential functions to the job duty. Do you need?
Which pages?
Come on up and I'll show you. Under the
The director?
page that says job description, name of position, Director of Business Development and Grants.
I think I can assist. Are you talking about the 8 responsibilities listed in the position description questionnaire, the PDQ?
There's a job description, name of position, Director of Business Development and Grants, grade 23.
Yeah, the job description, and there's the 10 essential functions, and are you comparing that to the 8 listed on the position
Yes.
description questionnaire? I know that Deputy Director Sharon Morris, after the last work session, revised the job description after the discussion.
Right.
So you're probably seeing a revised job description, and the PDQ probably was never changed, because that's the original PDQ that was done.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because the essential functions mentions develops and implements marketing strategies, but there's no reference to that in the job duty. So I'm just simply bringing that to your attention so that you can make sure that one is in sync with the other. There's also in there, serves as a training resource for county staff. That's listed as an essential function, but it's not listed under the job duty. And I know that you were trying to make sure that they were one and the same. That's just,
We'll make sure that reads
Understood.
together.
Understood.
yeah, you can have all that. Not really relevant, I guess, to the motion itself, but at least, want you to know I read it.
Trust.
Huh?
permafrost.
It was a trick, John.
It was, wasn't it? All right, I still think you should have more references to social media skills in this. That's above and above point A, B, and C when you're talking about economic development. I'd just throw it in there somewhere, but I'll leave it up to you. Any other council comments? All right, seeing none, we do a roll call. All those in favor of legislative bill 2015-12, start with Councilman Dodd.
Yes, sir, aye.
Aye. Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
I had one other item on your agenda, which was the year-end fraud hotline report. We normally do it on a fiscal basis, so this was for 7/1/2014 through June 30th, 2015. It's an easy report because we did not have a hotline complaint during that time frame. So the background, in the report, you'll see the background that you can read at your leisure, but there was no hotline complaints this last fiscal year.
That's good.
This goes till, this is June of 2015.
Yeah, we've been doing them on fiscal basis.
Okay. After June 30th, is there anything that's established after June 30th as far as calls that have come in?
Yeah, we continue to track, so after June 30th, we track anything that comes in.
Okay. Have there been any complaints since June 30th?
We've had one.
Had one?
Generally, they're few and far between.
That's up 100%.
Maybe not from the year before.
And that's been resolved, I assume?
No, it hasn't been resolved yet.
Okay. Anything else you need from us? Very good. Okay. At this time, we'd like to go into public comments. If you have any public comments, come to the podium, please. State your name. Good evening.
I think this one is, good evening. I'm glad to be back. I've been busy all summer, so I'm back. This is for Bob Carver. I was, reading the paper for August 27th. On Thursday, that's when the paper came out, I guess. And I want to know about the, deferment about the West Salisbury School and the reduced purpose amount, 2 million to 1.2 million. And the deferred 800,000 would be made up in the future. I don't understand that. Could you explain that to me, please?
Well, if you'd like, Bob, I mean, it's relatively public comments to make.
Oh, okay, well,
These are certainly questions you can address, and I
Yes,
know
I
the
would.
executive will be glad to talk to you with that.
yeah, okay,
After
well,
the
I
meeting.
got some questions to ask. When are you going to start on the West Salisbury School? I mean, when is you going, I know you want the 350. I already heard that y'all approved it. So I want to know when y'all going to start doing the plans on that.
The process is now with the Board of Education.
So you waiting on the Board of Education?
It's moving forward with the Board of Education,
Okay.
yes.
And so the deal is 350, right? The school amount that y'all gonna fund. So it's not no, problem, because I keep hearing about, there's still some controversy about the 650 school.
No, I think we've resolved that with the Board of Education.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, council comments.
Well, today is actually, I want to say the official day that all students attended school. So you might see a lot of buses out there and a lot of kids walking the streets. And I really do hope that everybody's very assertive about that and really careful about these kids walking the streets. A lot of them are in the streets. They're crossing Route 50, and occasionally they get hit by cars. So please be on the lookout for these kids. They are precious. They're our future. I do wish the school and the students well, and I wish them a safe and productive school year. Also, make it quick, I mentioned Mako earlier. The council and the county executive's office and some of the department heads attended Mako. Very informative, very educational, a lot of topics, finance, corrections, things they can come back with. One thing that I attended a meeting and a lot of people may not be aware of, there's a big problem in our county, in our state with heroin. A lot of heroin drug overdoses, and I know the sheriff's office, the state's attorney, they are doing their best to educate the public, and hopefully we can get a hand on this. I don't see it happening anytime soon, but there's a lot of people out there dying with these overdoses, and it's sad. So we need to educate ourselves. I know a lot of family members are probably affected by this. Speaking of the sheriff's office, seems like every day there's a police officer being shot now, and we've got some deputies out there, so I wish them the best, and I ask that they be safe and say prayers for these officers that are dying out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dodd. Any other council comments? Councilman Hall?
In the past couple of weeks, I've attended the city curfew meetings, chamber meeting with Andy Harris. I had a class reunion.
What year?
How many showed up?
Half of them. The other half are no longer with us. Attended the Morris Mill update at Fruitland City Hall last week, and it was led by Pete Bozick, George Miles, and Buren. It was an excellent meeting. There were approximately 100 people, maybe more, to find out what the status of the water tower is in Fruitland and how the water lines are going to Morris Mill and how they're working out. And we're looking at 2016 for completion on that, and they're looking forward to it. We had our first airport meeting last week. The Fruitland Falcons had their opening football day. There are 400 young people who were there, and they'll be playing football every night. Also attended the Salisbury University Fall Convocation. I'd like to welcome the class of 2019. 1,300 students were there at August 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hall. Councilman Kilmer?
I know we'll be talking about this in our work session, but we're having hearings this month on the elected school board issue. First one's coming up on September 10th at the Midway Room, if I recall correctly, at 6 o'clock. I hope everyone shows up. I see Delmar Town Commissioner Bunky Luffman in the audience. We're having, thanks for coming. We're also having one on September 22nd at 6 p.m. in Delmar. So I know that there's a lot of school pride in Delmar, so we're looking forward to seeing a large and hopefully not too boisterous crowd there. But thank you for attending, Bunky. It's always good to see you. So if you want to make your voice heard on the elected school board issue, turn out for these meetings. There'll be 4 scheduled throughout September and October. Like I said, the first one coming up is September 10th, then September 22nd is the next one after that. And for more details, we'll be covering that in our work session, I believe. So,
Thank you, Councilman Kilmer. Any other comments?
John, I've got
We
one more
can go back to you.
I've got one more comment.
You had your turn.
Can I have another turn?
You can take, you want
No.
you want to give him time?
I'll give him mine.
You yield your
Deferred.
time?
I don't know how you fit it all in.
Lower Eastern Shore Heritage Council is doing a annual vintage car rally September the 19th, and it'll originate in Salisbury, and it'll take probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 hours. We're affiliated, Wicomico County is affiliated with the Lower Eastern Shore Heritage Corporation as law company, and Somerset County and Worcester County. So it's a joint effort between the 3 counties. And if you'd like to have some more information on it, go to lowereasternshoreheritage.org. Thank you.
Any other council comments?
I do have one more thing. Before our next meeting, I want to bring it to your attention. I don't, nobody was here from Parks and Recs, but Delmarva Bike Week will be here. I think it starts the 17th, 18th, 19th, and leaves that Sunday. I expect over 120,000 people to be between Ocean City and Salisbury and Wicomico County, so please be careful with those motorcycles out there. I know some of them are loud, mine is, so be on the lookout for them, but that's going to bring a lot of business to Wicomico County, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dodd. Any other council comments? Under presidential comments, I also attended the event with the Falcons, the Fruitland Falcons, and would like to thank Ed Urban and the Redmond Lodge for the fantastic program they had there. It was only 8 years ago where Ed said, "Oh, John, I think I'm going to have a football league in Fruitland," and I was thinking, 10, 20, and it started out small. What is it, John? It's hundreds.
400.
400 kids. And the field was completely crowded. I didn't get a chance to speak, but I would have told them to make sure that they remembered that moment, because if you know anything about Ed Urban, there'll probably be seating for 70,000 and a stadium there in about 2 years, because that's how he operates, and that's how fast this is growing.
Well, he did state that there's 900 kids that attend throughout the year.
Yeah, I think I heard that as well. And they have football and they have hockey as well, so it's just growing by leaps and bounds, and obviously it was a needed addition to the community. So I just wanted to thank Ed and the Redlands Lodge for their support, and all the individual and all the companies and individuals that sponsored that league. They're doing a great job. That being said, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn so that we can go into an open work session followed by a closed work session.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting's adjourned. First item on the agenda for the work session for September 1st, 2015 is just a discussion and sort of a review by council before we actually head into our public hearings. Wanted to just touch base with everybody on, if they had any opinions on how they wanted to see things go, any specifics they wanted to address. I would open the floor to entertain any discussion at this time from anyone.
Format, do you have a format in mind?
The format that we've decided to do is, of course, open the floor to the public. I thought that we could have 3 whiteboards for display.
Don't want to go get one.
It's okay. I think it's okay. Oh, that's fine, Mr. Kim. Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. I thought we'd have 3 whiteboards to display. On the whiteboards, you could take the 3 different departments, 3 different sections that were of concern. One would be what we have right now as an appointed. The second whiteboard would be elected, and the third whiteboard would be hybrid. Those seem to be the 3 major items, and I hope there's not another one at this stage of the game. And as people come up and talk, we would actually write these on the pros and cons of each. If they were to come up and address their concerns over an appointed school board, we would put that in red if it was a negative, or we put it in black if it was a positive. And just keep a track of exactly what's being discussed.
Will you keep a tally also as far as how many are in favor of each one? I mean, just a rough.
We could, if you want, we could, would you like to see like
I think it'd help just to get a consensus in the
Okay.
room at each of the different spots, just a hash mark on each one.
so sort of take a vote between each 3?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. So that's pretty much the breakdown of it. I think the specifics on the student responsibilities is going to be something the council will have to work out ourselves. We know that the appointment is what it is. We know that the elected could be 5 and 2 at large. We know it could just be 5. Some people have suggested 4 and 3, though I don't know how you would configure that based on our 5 districts. So, and then of course the hybrid could be a hybrid with 5 and 2 appointed by the governor, or 2 appointed by the executive. And I know that Dr. Basehart is here today and had an excellent article suggesting, was it a commission?
Yes, a nominating commission
For the.
Would you want to expound on that? You certainly could come to the, I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's the article was in the Independent, is that correct?
Yes.
And it was an interesting perspective. I know that Councilman Kilmer had looked at it as well, and Councilman Hall.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, President Cannon. Yeah, I haven't looked at what I've written for a couple of weeks, but I just was doing a little research, and I thought, what do the other counties do? And I ran across this with Baltimore County, where they use they will be using a nominating commission. And I thought, oh, well, that might be an interesting thing to look at in Wicomico County with the 2 appointed. And I think if part of the goal is, or maybe all the goal is, transparency and citizen involvement, Well, okay, certainly the elected does that. And the appointed, be a nice way if we could structure a way of having citizen involvement and transparency for the two appointed. And I think there are various things that could be changed in what I propose to make it satisfactory to a lot of people. But I think it would be better than just having the governor or the county executive. And I hear more talk about the county executive than the governor for the appointed, to have a process that will be transparent and have citizen involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, and we do appreciate your input. It's very well structured. The article was excellent. Councilman Hall?
The question that I come up with is, if we have 3 weight boards and it's unanimous that we go with a hybrid of some sort, we're not going to make a decision immediately what the hybrid decision is going to be when we sit down here, because there's so many variations of hybrid. So how do you handle that?
Well, first, we're going to have to see what the public
Right.
brings to the table. I mean, I was unaware of any type of a commission appointment at all until I read the article.
Right.
And I thought that was an eye-opener. And there may be individuals, I would hope that Dr. Basart in one of these sessions will be in attendance to feel free to explain as you will. And I think what we'll also do is have handouts at these meetings, part of that being his article and other articles that Greg Bassett wrote in The Independent, so that they can keep those and read them. But whatever the public brings to the table, John, is going to be the beginning of the processes that we start to sift through in our decision-making process.
Right. And that'll be done in an open work session?
Yes. Yeah, well, we certainly would be meeting after the public hearings. We do have to come to a consensus.
Then will we go back to public hearings again once we make a decision, or do we go for a straw poll, or do we go for this is what we've decided on?
Well, it is our responsibility to sort of filter the public input.
Yes.
It is, and then we can come to what we think are the best options at hand. At that point in time, Mrs. Howarth, would it not then be introduced as a public hearing anyway as to how this? No, it isn't. It's just a letter that goes up. That's right.
It's to your legislators.
Yeah, I would say, John, that once we've had the 4 public hearings, that it would have been properly vetted through the public, and then it would be our responsibility to make our decisions. Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments? So that's where we started with it. Anybody has any? Of course, it doesn't have to be tonight either. Any other recommendations or suggestions between now and the first public hearing? We're wide open.
6 p.m. each of these days.
I believe is it 6 p.m.?
Didn't say in the article here, but yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, at this time we will close the open session so that we may go into a closed session. Thank you for attending.